Hi, I'm Peter Burlingame of the Self-Defense Initiative. Let's talk a little bit about fitting the gun to you. There's many guns on the market. We're blessed with a plethora of amazing firearms of different sizes, shapes, and configurations. Not all firearms are created equal. Not all people are created equal, and that's a good thing. We're very fortunate that we have such a selection of firearms so that we can really tailor the gun to the person. But you need to know a little bit about what to look for when you go to purchase a gun. It can be kind of overwhelming when you go into the gun store and there's 50 different guns on display and everybody will have their opinion on which one you should get. Which one should you get? That's going to be up to you. So armed with this knowledge, you will be able to get a firearm that fits for you optimally. That will allow you to work with it effectively. When you're examining a firearm to see if it works for you or not, the first thing you're going to want to do is to open your hand so that the web between the thumb and the forefinger is available. And you want to put the pistol as high up into that web as possible, so the back strap is in the web. What we're looking for is that the pistol is in line with the large bones of the arm for a couple of reasons. One, this allows the gun to point very naturally. And two, it lets the gun's forces of recoil go up against the major muscles and bones of the arm. Both of those things will let you operate the pistol efficiently. Now, one thing we have to examine is trigger reach, which is the distance between the back strap and the front of the trigger. And when we get the firearm in line with our forearm, we need to verify that we can get enough finger on the trigger. If you don't have enough finger on the trigger, then you're going to have problems pulling it, both biomechanically with not having enough strength to pull a trigger, and also that you're not applying pressure along the axis of the bore. And so it's important that our finger gets on the front of the trigger. This allows us to press straight back and not apply any sideways vector on the gun, which will result in the gun getting pushed off target while we apply pressure on the trigger. When you're purchasing a gun, one of the most critical aspects to consider is trigger reach. Trigger reach is the distance from the back strap of the pistol at the highest point to the face of the trigger. This is the distance that your hand is going to have to deal with to get onto the trigger properly. So once again, trigger reach is the distance from the back strap, the highest part of the back strap, to the front of the trigger. Here we have two very common mid-sized pistols. We have the Glock 19 and we have a Sig Sauer 226. And while they're very similar in size, the trigger reach is substantially different. Let me see if I can demonstrate that for you. So the front of the trigger face of the Glock 19 comes to about here. If we apply that to the Sig Sauer 226, you can see that the trigger face is about 1/3 of an inch longer. Now, why this is important is not all hands are created equal. Some hands are bigger than others, some fingers are longer than others, and the trigger reach may or may not work for a particular hand. While anyone can pick up these pistols and actually fire them and fire them accurately, they may or may not be optimal for that person. They may not fit as well for that person as they could. And so the person will always be struggling against the gun. And when you're considering that these are self-defense guns, we want the guns to work with us, not against us. So let's examine a little bit more why the trigger reach is important and the actual biomechanical aspects of that. So when you're in the store and you take the perspective pistol and put it in your hand so it's in line with your forearm, place your finger on the trigger and see if you can get the middle of the pad on the very face of the trigger. If you can't, then that gun is too large for you. This is a representation of a Glock 17. They're great pistols, but they are a little on the large side on trigger reach. I have a very average hand, and this is right on the edge of being too large for me. So I'm much better off with something with a more with a shorter trigger reach, like a Smith & Wesson M&P or this Ruger SR9. So think about this when you're buying the gun. Put it in line with your forearm, get your finger on the trigger to make sure that you can apply pressure properly when you're shooting. Now, can you shoot a pistol that doesn't fit you properly? Absolutely. I can put my finger properly on the trigger and then grab the pistol, and you'll notice that it is not in line with my forearm anymore. And as long as I use my sights, I can still get hits. The problem is the gun is now not pointing naturally for me. So while my forearm is pointed at you, the pistol is way off. The camera is about 10, 12 feet away from me, and I'm shooting 15 feet off to your left, as opposed to the gun being in line with me and it works naturally. So when I'm operating the gun quickly under stress, it's working with me, not against me. The other problem with having the gun off the line of your arm is the gun is now recoiling against your thumb rather than up the arm bones. The gun will torque more in your hand. If you have a smaller thumb, it will become uncomfortable. And if it's uncomfortable, you're not going to want to train, and you're going to start developing a flinch or an anticipating of the recoil. So when you're purchasing the gun, put it in your hand so it's in line with your forearm, and verify that you can get the middle of the pad or the first joint of the index finger on the front of the trigger. You really want to have some gap between the index finger and the frame of the pistol so that the only place the trigger finger is touching the gun is the face of the trigger. Let's go live fire and I can show you the importance of this one thing. Now, if the pistol is in line with my forearm, that allows me to do this. If the pistol is not in line with my forearm, this is what happens. I'm 20 feet off on a target that is 12 feet away from me. Having a pistol that fits you allows you to do this. One other aspect of having the gun fit you properly is the biomechanics. We want the gun to recoil up the big bones and muscles of the arm. Should look like this. If the gun is too large for us and we have to compromise our grip, having it twisted slightly in our hand so it's not in line with the forearm, yes, we can get hits, but notice how much harder I have to work for it, how much slower it is to recover from recoil, and how much torque I get on my wrist. So yes, I can shoot accurately, but not efficiently. So that's the other reason for having the pistol fit you so it's in line with your forearm. There's many choices of firearms out there today. Pick what works for you. Don't listen to what somebody else's favorite gun is. It may or may not work for you. This is Peter Burlingame. Thanks for watching. Be safe out there.